And again, thank you very much for joining this webinar on how Creative Brief can help you to shape your brand voice. Well, my name is Deepak Goyal and I'm co-CEO and CTO of eZdia. Though I'm a technologist, but I've been working most of my career learning marketer issue and solving problem for marketing. Uh, we have been working, more than 70% of the top IR companies in US and India and some part of the Europe. So we have taken the input from many of the brands and learn from them that what are their needs, and when it comes to creating the content which speaks their brand. So based on that, we have developed some of the pieces or modules which really helping them, and we would love to share that how you can leverage those pieces for your brands to create a style guide for your brand which speaks your brand and help you to enforce those on your content, and you have that unified marketing. Well, today as a presenter, we have a subject matter expert who has been living and breathing marketing for more than a decade. I'm pleased to introduce Padmini Murthy. Padmini is Director of Marketing for eZdia Products and Services. Padmini will share her experience on how Creative Brief can really help us when it comes to efficient content marketing and branding. So, Padmini, over to you.
Thanks, Deepak. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. As Deepak mentioned, the content of this webinar is mostly focused around the importance of creative brief in today's enterprise and how difficult it is for some of the organizations to actually sustain a cohesive creative brief, especially for the smaller companies and the mid markets. So I'm going to go a little bit of detail into that and talk about how our platform can actually help you to design creative briefs easily. So, as I already talked about the agenda for today, we will be discussing some of these topics, and the most focus would be around the importance of creating a creative brief for an organization, the roadblocks, and then how our platform can help. So, a little bit of introduction about eZdia before I get into the main topic. We are a content solutions company. We've been in business for about 6, 7 years now, and our genesis was with content. So we have been solving content problems for the top IR companies like Amazon, eBay, Flipkart, Myntra, Staples, Best Buy, and you see all those names and logos here. And as we solve this content problem, we stumble upon the pain point of standardizing a brand guideline. And most of these bigger organizations have had these issues. And based on that knowledge from the customer, our technologists and product visionaries have gone ahead and designed a platform that would help not only these organizations, but many, many organizations like them to create standard brand guidelines to further the content efforts, right? And this is where our unique selling proposition would be today. So, why are we here today? We are not here to talk about the platform in its entirety. There are different features of the platform that are not probably contextual to today's talk. I don't want to make it a creative brief 101 because you all are aware of what a creative brief is, and we don't want to talk about very industry specific problems as it comes to marketing. But I think what we want to share today is our um, learning from our customers and what we have gathered from them in terms of their pain points, and talk about how we have solved these, especially when it comes to brand guidelines and creative briefs. So you've already seen these graphics before. I had shown them at the start of the presentation, but it just gives you a perspective in terms of the different types of problems that organizations are dealing with today in standardizing their brand. So, there might be issues related to collaboration between different stakeholders. There might be budget centric issues, or there might be several other issues related to either organizational changes and processes, etc. So, as you go through the complexity of an organization, and especially in the modern times when everything is driven very digitally and with technology, it's not very easy to keep a brand guideline standardized or even have a brand guideline that everybody is able to follow. So, as a result of that, there is a lot of chaos. Now, if you look at the main reason why it happens, it's because briefs are really complex because they have to interact with multiple stakeholders and multiple types of issues. So, for example, a brief needs to follow a certain business objective guideline. It needs to adhere to customer insights, to competition. It needs to have like a proper schedule drawn out. Um, there has to be profiling done with personas and everything that you're catering to. And if your product is continuously changing and evolving, it is very difficult to actually pin down what the creative brief persona should talk about, right? And also, obviously, like all of these parts that you see here are continuously in motion. As a result of it, your brief obviously has to be continuously in motion. And there are different types of briefs that you create within an organization because there are different types of marketing activities that you do. For example, the design team has its own specifications for, let's say, a web or a graphic project. The visual content team will have their own methodology for infographics or videos or whatever it is. There is a content team which is specifically writing content like blogs and one pagers, and they'll have like their own, mojo. So, as you see, each of these teams within marketing itself are siloed, as a result of which there is a lot of disparity and a lot of diversity within the guidelines. And of course, there are different types of content that you need to deal with. So there are case studies, there are ebooks, videos, infographics, one pagers, blogs, social media posts, you name them, and we have the content here, right? So imagine all of these pieces have to adhere to one guideline and one string of thought. And it's very difficult to do that, especially as organizations get large. I've already talked about multiple types of stakeholders in my previous slides, but even to create a brief, you have to work with multiple people. So there are customers and partners, and especially if you're doing a webinar or an analyst briefing or whatever, they need to understand your brand in its entirety. The marketing and design teams, when they are creating their own, you know, um, website, or they are creating their own design assets, they have to work together to understand, and they have to talk the same language. There are product groups, and especially when product groups are working with UI UX teams, marketing has to work very closely with them to understand what their thought process is, and it has to percolate into marketing terms when the product is being flushed out. And there's obviously the whole external workforce angle. And external workforce today has become a big part of marketing. For example, you have heard of sites like Upwork and Odesk, and a lot of marketers today are actually tapping into freelancers to help them. But when you do that, the flip side of it is these freelancers need to understand your brand. They need to understand the guidelines before they actually create something for you. And it is for this reason that some standard guideline becomes very critical. And then there are organizational changes. So you have an existing team which has actually created the whole guideline and established everything, but then suddenly there's a change in the team, and then there's a new team that is formed, and they have absolutely no clue of what the old team worked on. there's new technologies that are continuously adopted, new softwares in play. And when new softwares come in, obviously, all of the legacy is kind of thrown out the door. And then obviously there is like this whole new market focus, because if you have a product that you're continuously evolving over time, your market segments that you're catering to changes. So as a result of this, um, there's a lot of legacy information that gets lost, and there's a need to preserve all of that. And it's not easy to do it through versioning and through a non software approach. And that is why today we are at a point where we want to talk about some of the benefits that our platform can provide you in mitigating these risks, right? And how a software like ours can help to easily and quickly create something, collaborate, and work with multiple stakeholders, yet not not be too complex to understand, right? We've seen over time, and this is a statistic that we've kind of gathered from our study after having worked with various analysts and various customers, that overall the adoption curve for something like a creative brief is very, very slow. So, for example, in a small and a mid-market kind of an environment where you're launching a product very freshly, people are not interested or inclined to create a guideline right at the beginning, because it's obviously a moving target, right? And so what happens is, in those organizations, different groups go ahead and create their own things, and this again leads to what we call a chaos. So to avoid that kind of approach, we have designed a software for small and mid market teams to use. And when I say small and mid market teams, don't get me wrong, like, this is not a software that can be just used by them, but obviously a larger organization. But it is more ubiquitous in the sense that it can be used by a variety of marketing teams within every organization, right? So now this is obviously going to lead to a lot of um, uh, nerve wracking experience for you if you have to deal with all of this on a daily basis. And I, as a marketer, can actually vouch for that, because before we actually initiated something like a creative brief, we always had a lot of confusion and a lot of hands raised and everything, right? A lot of questions. But when we actually do something very schematically with a software, it could help to ease out things. And today, that's exactly what we are going to show in our demo of the creative brief here, and tell you about some of the benefits of how this works, right? So, our creative brief is very customizable. It can be customized to your business need. It can be configured in very easily in a matter of minutes. You can be as granular or as high level in your approach to create the brief. It can be associated with any type of content you want. And as Deepak dwells into the demo, you'll see it. It can be easily changed and percolated across different teams. It can be different versions of the same brief for different types of content. So that's the beauty of the software. What it does, it makes it so flexible, so scalable, and so extensible that it's just a no-brainer to use it for your marketing team. And we've seen a lot of softwares in our career, and obviously working with our customers, we've seen them work with different types of softwares. But we have always found that one gap, um, especially as it comes to feature brand guideline feature for different softwares, we have not seen it. And that's the reason why Deepak and various technologists at eZdia have gone ahead and kind of formalized this feature to bring it to you. So, without further ado, I would like to pass on the stage to Deepak again, and he will show you a demo of how all of this works. Deepak.
Well, thank you, Padmini. And I second Padmini what she said about the need. We keep hearing the same thing from our agency customer as well as from our brand customer. and how difficult to keep all the things at one place and maintain, those unified messaging to all the stakeholders that how they should be creating their content. So, well, a couple of things which we have been hearing from our customer all the time, and based on their input, we have created. So, one thing is we hear from our customer always that how easy to initiate a new creative brief. I mean, and in an organization, everybody has to do that whenever they are creating a new project. So they ask us to make a very simple questionnaire so that there's creative brief creators or the marketers can go over that and then they fill the information, which then can be used by the content creators. And if you see that, one of the example here, I'll show you in the platform. But if you see that, as simple as the simple objective goals overview, content description, how long it should be, what are the just HTML guidelines, what are the do's and don'ts. So putting that all together, that gives them guideline that what they should be asking for themselves or from other stakeholders in order to come out a proper style guide. Now then, the second challenge for them is that you can always do that in a Word file or a Google Doc or something, but then it comes to that, how do you really translate that or transform that information into such a way it should be easily consumable by the people who is going to use this creative brief to create the content. So if you see example over here, that how this long form translate into beautiful template, that gives a pretty good idea by looking at it that who are the personas, customers, what are the style and tone, what are the do's and don'ts, how I should be looking at that, and then be able to even cross-reference, create a brief for other other part of the marketing initiative like infographics, visual content, emails. So the idea is that you have everything in one place and easily reachable. You don't need to look through multiple documents while you are creating the content, and it's available to everyone, whether it's like two people in the company or there are 2,000 uh, people in the freelancing community or external workforce for the larger organization. They are working on it. I mean, we have certain cases where more than 300 to 400 people work on a project. They certainly need to have that, and we have a cases where we have customer who has 3 to 4 people team within the organization who are working. But one thing is for sure, there are always many stakeholders. I mean, your leadership team, your customer, your vendors, your marketers, your own employees. So there are many stakeholders whom you would want to know that how the things are should be created. So that's the one thing. Second thing is the enforcement. So good that you created the creative brief, and then good that you have now comprehensive style guide, which people can easily learn about your brand guidelines. The second thing, how do you really enforce? And that enforcement, at a high level, people get pretty easily that who are the target customer and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the granularity, and the granularity, it could be as simple as using the certain brand specific word or not using certain brand specific word, not using obviously you do not want to use any abusive words, and especially that problem becomes more a big problem when you outsource your content to to freelancing community or even to external contractor who has limited knowledge. So you want to make sure that you enforce those guidelines. And so for that, we have something called negative filter. We call it negative filter, but more work as a brand guide like enforcement tool. And what happened, like it could work as simple as even to correcting the mistake which community or people do on and off. And I've seen our customer using for as simple as many of the freelancer they use isn't, so and where the brand would like to use is not. I mean, this is kind of more like editorial enforcement, but by doing that you reduce a ton of work for yourself and correct the problem right at the source. So I'll be happy to show some of the things in the platform, same thing, so that you can get the real-time experience. And I believe Padmini, you're giving a free trial for the attendees of these webinars, so that you can try these things by yourself in the platform, and then you can help your brand to have that consistency.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I mean, if you're interested in trying the software, please get in touch with us and we'll be able to set up an instance for you immediately.
yeah, and but Padmini will share the information how to do exactly in the end of the webinar. So stay tuned for that. So this is one of the instance I have. Those who have not seen the platform or have not used the platform, certainly, I'll quickly go over that, at the high level of what you do. So, what this platform do, this platform allows you to create multiple type of projects. Majority of our customers, they use marketing content for the product pages to create, their buying guide, blogs, article, and so on and so forth. And creative brief is a part of the solution. However, if you have a need where you want to curate the content or review the pages and so on and so forth, there are many other solutions available which you can use for the same thing. Here companies are using for link management, backlink management, page reviews, and many companies use for cataloging as well. So let's stick to this thing, and I have actually created some of the project just to save the time. So if you see here, there are a couple of projects out here. I'm going to use one project to show you that how the things works over here. So let's say this SEO-centric blog, which my team has created to write all the blogs about SEO, because we educate our customer about how they can create the content which is SEO rich. For that, the way it works is you create a content, you create an item, and in the item it will allow you to update the creative brief. So you can select one or multiple items at the same time. So many of the cases I have seen that customer has need to have the same creative brief for most of the content, a one type of content, and but if they want to use different for the different content, this platform certainly allow that. So I'm going to just pick one thing and click on the quick action called update project info. In that, you will see that there's a place for you to update the creative brief. So if you see over here, what I can do, I can simply go and I can pick a creative brief. So there are multiple briefs I would have created in advance, and when I create that, it will allow me to change for a specific item. Let me quickly show you to begin with, how do you start creating creative briefs. So when you start the project, you create the project and you go into the project configuration area. There you will find something called creative brief into project management setting. In that, you can create number of briefs you want. So what usually our customer does, they create a brief, and then they later associate that with the content they need. So I'll not go in the detail, but as I mentioned that, these all the different question, if you see, is pretty much we have collected from many customers, a requirement, and then we put them together. So this kind of give you the best practice of the industry, uh, uh, and the different content description, length, HTML layout, do's and don'ts. You can add as many as you want, and it will be shaped nicely into final creative brief. Target personas. You can put the pictures of the persona. You can define key and demographics, style, tone. Point of view. So some of the things which we have, try to incorporate, so you don't need to really build from the scratch. And more important, in this platform, it comes with a sample brief. So you can use those sample demo brief. So here, if you can see, this is pre-filled for a product page. So you can use this brief as is, or you can change according to your need. These are the standard guidelines. So if you can see that, do write clear, informative copy, and so on and so forth. And you can use this as is, or you can modify for your need by just changing a little bit. If you are more mature audience, you can simply change that. Uh, If you use Chicago style guides instead of AP style guide, if you have Chicago, you can change that to whatever you want. Then another need came from our customers is that while we ask all this best practices and the industry guideline, they also need extendability. They also need their own way of creating the things so that they can add additional information without getting restricted only to these questions. So certainly, what you do. There's a little function over there. So it allow you to create a creative brief. Like for example, here, you just go there and click on this little button called Add New Tab. You create a new tab, and then say blog specific style guide.
And this actually, helps with the other point that I was talking about with multiple types of content. Remember, so you have so many different types of content that you need to deal with, and each of these will have separate like rules and regulations that you need to follow. And in this kind of a setup, what you could do is you could create multiple tabs for multiple types of content, and whoever is writing the content expert can actually go to that particular tab for that particular content type and understand the guidelines.
Absolutely. So if you see that, I have created one more tab, and my team has used another things for infographics. So once you are done with creative brief, building creative brief, and same time you can also go to negative filters, and the negative filter then allow you to put the different negative words, and these negative words could be enforceable for all the projects, or they could be enforceable only for a specific project. So what happens when this platform is used? What happens, like every brand has their own. Sometime the company like Sears, who is one of our customer, when they have multiple brands within the company, they need to maintain the different negative filters and the brand guideline. So, but there are some common things, like for example, abusive keywords. You do not want abusive words to go in by any means. So you put that list and you enforce for all the projects. It's not been set up here, but you can easily set up that. Some of the things are out of the box. Comes for you, so you can leverage those. Now, if you see here, my team has configured these two. The common mistake what the writer had been making, and they put the suggestion for that, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to show you both that how does it really enforce and how people learn about creativity. So I go back to the desk. This is a place where people work on things. So you can go to update project info, and here you get a little this field called created brief, and when you click on it, it shows you all the briefs what you have created. You pick one of the brief and you simply update that brief, and automatically it comes, and all your changes. So remember that I did for 40 years. All its changes will start appearing over here in the much neat and clean way, so that when writer is writing on that or going through it, it's pretty easy for them to consume. And this also gives you a great collaborative tool when then all the stakeholders who has permission to change, they will be able to change the creative brief, but those who don't, they will not be. They will just have read-only access. Same thing, for if you want to have a cross-reference for other type of item, other type of content, you can always go and you can put the images, you can put the little information as of an email or the blog specific creative brief, what I just created. So you can do wonders. I mean, many things. I have seen many of our customer. They kind of go in tangent, and I have seen. Like if you see this one of the customer, I mean, you see this brief is can go in really long, and it can take any shape they want. You can put the image, pictures, videos. They have different sort of things, and many creative ways. So you can be as creative as you want to. In this case. So certain customers, some customer use as is out of the box. Some customers are, if you see that, can go in tangent. People are very creative here. they can, they really go in detail and depend on the brands. But think about all these things being in the Microsoft Word or, in a document, become a chaos. So certainly, that helps. Let me quickly show you how we enforce those guidelines once we build it. So the negative filters part.
Yeah, sorry. And while Deepak is showing that, one thing which the beauty of this platform is that all these updates are real time. And once you, let's say you want to edit a brief or you want to update a brief, all those guidelines will automatically be easily reflected for all the content guys, right? So there is no lag, and that's the beauty of the platform.
Anything Anything you write which has a negative word, so I intentionally put the isn't in that. And if I say but or anything, and I tried, so this is me as a writer. I am right now trying to put something which we have configured not to use, and as a warning. So when I try to save this content, you see that it automatically throws that on me, that for the content but and isn't is not good. So you should use either but or use is not instead. So those kind of things are, something which needs to be, we need to make sure that configure, and then you can enforce on your larger audience. That really avoid. We have seen at least 30 to 40% improvement in terms of productivity of editors by putting these guidelines. So 30-40% time if you can save of yours by just putting this effort and enforcing and making these native filters and creative briefs. I mean, it's a huge saving for our customers. So I would really advise you to try this out, and make sure your organization has unified style guide and everybody is on the same page. That's pretty much it. And one more thing, I would say that, we encourage our customer to use this for themselves, but as a part of our eZdia services, we have also helped our customer to create these creative briefs for their specific content. So part of the service, we have the style guide masters, those who really good at creating those style guides, and they can help you on the demand basis. Over to you, Padmini.
Yes, thanks, Deepak. So I think based on this talk, if you are interested in actually trying out this feature and there are various other features of our platform, please connect with us at sales@eZdia.com or write to me or Deepak on our coordinates that we shared earlier. And we would be very happy to actually help you out and set up a free instance for you. We are actually running a promotion right now for a month to do a free trial of our platform, and you will get this and a lot other features included in it for your content needs. So get in touch with us and we'll get you more details about the offer.
Thanks, Padmini. And please make sure when you're sending an email on send sales at eZdia, you mention create a brief webinar in a subject line, so that that can be entitled to the promotion. Create a brief webinar. You just need to put one word, create a brief webinar in the email what you send, and you should be able to receive all the promotion.
And
Thanks, everyone.
thanks. And if you guys have
Uh,
any questions, please post it on your chat window and we'll be happy to take it. If not, then I'll see you next time. So we'll leave the floor open for 5 minutes for questions. So one question
so
that came in, Deepak, and I think it might be more applicable to for you to answer it. So there are different types of creative briefs for e-commerce centric companies versus marketing centric content, right? So how would you differentiate, and how can you specialize creative briefs for e-commerce slash product centric companies?
Yeah, so I mean, the part of the execution, when it comes to tool perspective, your creative brief is your voice, right? Part of the platform, what our customer do, we have some of the sample creative brief, which is e-commerce specific, like for buying guides, for blogs, for product description, and so on and so forth. So when we work with our customer, we ensure that we understand what type of content they want to create. Whether it's an e-commerce, in the e-commerce world, what we have seen usually for the mid and large scale of clients, we have seen that creative brief need to ensure not only the brand voice of the retailer, but also the brand voice of the brands what they are selling. For in case of Sears, if you remember, I showed not a Sears, I'm sorry, Staples. They have many brands what they sell, and hence they need to make sure that for a specific brand they need any specific type of classes they need to maintain the creative brief, or there's some rules and regulation. So it a little bit more challenging when it comes to as a retailer and e-commerce compared to the product. In the product you have a couple of products or multiple products where you have a brand voice or guideline is same. But as a retailer, you have to make sure that not only your brand guideline but also the product's guidelines are also included.
Thanks, Deepak. There's one more question around, agencies and brands themselves. So, if you were an agency, how would you configure creative briefs versus for your own brand?
So in our retail world, we consider everybody as an agency, if you ask me. So many of our customer, large customer of the retailer, they sell multiple brands, right? So they have their own brand sometimes, they sell multiple brands. Like I mentioned, Sears, has a Kmart or their own brands, and then they same time, give this services to their internal departments, multiple different categories. So pretty much every time that's the reason we have created these projects. So you create a different project for different brands. So if you're an agency and you're dealing with multiple customer, you just create a different project for different customers. And if you are a brand and or a retailer who is dealing in internal multiple brands, you do the same thing. And for every customer of yours as an agency or every brand, if you are a multiple brand, if you are marketing multiple brand, you create different creative brief and then associate them the content as you're creating.
Right. Another question I have here is, can the creative brief be exported to a PDF from the
Uh,
platform?
Yes. So right now, what we have, you can certainly, obviously, since it's a full-fledged HTML page, you can always go ahead and, print it out as a PDF. But, we would be happy to take that suggestion. It was there in the product line. We'll be happy to, take that as an input and do that. But right now, you can certainly, always go and print as a PDF,
Okay.
since it is a full-fledged HTML.
Okay. One more is, why can I include multimedia or videos, etc., within the brief? Because I think you showed some of that, Deepak, but I wasn't sure if you showed that part where you could.
Yeah, you can do that. So as I mentioned, and I can show you very quickly what you do pretty much when you go and do the create the brief, and the way you do it, you simply go to the brief, and in the tab side, that allow you to put any HTML for that matter. So when you are in your, I can show you pretty quickly, if I have that handy. So in any brief, if you go, that will allow you to put the HTML over here. So whenever you have a video, just take the iframe. Say for example, if you have a YouTube, go to the YouTube, take that shared URL, click on HTML here, and just paste that video link here. It will start showing up automatically into your brief.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you can do that. Certainly, if you have any question about or any concern about Creative Brief, feel free to send an email. If you are already existing customer, then you can always do support@crewmachine.com. And if you're a new customer, you should, I think even sales at eZdia.com will be able to help you.
Yeah, and we will be releasing an ebook very shortly around some of the principles of creating a creative brief and how our platform can help. So please,
Mm.
yeah, please look out for that. And then also, as I said, we will be posting this webinar on our website and also sharing a blog piece with you guys around some of our learnings. So you can take a look at all of that and connect with us as and when. So I think those were some of the questions that we had, Deepak. So I think we can probably bring this webinar to a closure now. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to contact us. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye.